the National Defense Strategy. Do you think they do a sufficient job of deterring China from a military confrontation with Taiwan when conspicuously and clearly intentionally they entirely omit any mention of Taiwan in the document, which is certainly not the case in the Biden administration?
Sir, I will point out the arms sale that was announced a few months ago under this administration of $11 billion was the largest in history.
You're right, it was announced. But what confidence can you give us that the president won't chicken out on that as well? Because it seems like every step of the way, he announces something that might go against China or deter China or put pressure on China, and then he always chickens out and gives in to China.
Sir, I think the $11 billion in arms sales speaks for itself.
No, it has not been sold. It's been proposed. What confidence do you have that that deal will actually go through? What confidence can you give us?
Sir, you're right. Taiwan also needs to do its part. The Taiwan LY is currently going through a process of passing what could potentially be a historic special defense
Why is the
budget.
president so non-committal when it comes to defending Taiwan? He said, I don't want to be put in that position, whereas President Biden was pretty explicit that we will defend Taiwan. That's probably the strongest way you can deter China from attacking Taiwan.
Sir, I think strategic ambiguity is a policy that has worked for decades. It preserves the president's decision space. I don't know how helpful it is to publicly state our intentions of what would happen in the event of a Chinese invasion. Again, strategic ambiguity has worked, and I fully support it.
Admiral Paparo, how long will it take to regain the force posture that we enjoyed in your Indo-Pacific AOR prior to February 28th, 2026, when we had to divert a lot of munitions to Iran?
So I'll answer that question in closed session, but you know, I'm really supportive of supercharging the defense industrial base, and I'm also very supportive of non-traditional weapon sets that will continue to augment and affect the changing character of warfare.
I am too. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Chair, and I recognize the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Gooden.
Admiral Paparo, yesterday you testified that Bitcoin held potential as a tool for national security. Recent research from the Bitcoin Policy Institute estimates China has approximately 194,000 Bitcoins, while the United States has approximately 328,000 Bitcoins. In this era of digital competition, would it be to our strategic advantage to maintain a lead in this regard as we do with other strategic resources like gold and oil?
Sir, our interest in Bitcoin is as a tool of cryptography, a blockchain, and reusable proof of work as an additional tool to secure networks and to project power. And so I think this protocol is here to stay. I think the computer science of it has direct implications for the projection of power, not financial, but from a computer science standpoint, from the securing of networks. And so I am supportive of those applications. All instruments of national power are important, but from the military application standpoint, my interest in Bitcoin is as a computer science tool as projection of power.
I appreciate that. I agree with you. And I'd also like to hear your thoughts on monetary competition over the coming decades. What role does Bitcoin play in spreading digital property rights?
Well, you know, people use Bitcoin today, right now, to protect their own intellectual property. And that's the reusable proof of work protocol that's combined with blockchain for accountability and cryptography for security. And so that's the role that I see for it. I see direct national security implications, and then I'm supportive for anything that maintains our own dollar dominance worldwide.
I appreciate that. Do you think we're adequately prepared to counter China's strategic direction regarding digital assets?
I think that our recent act with the Genius Act is a great step forward that moves us in that direction.
And lastly, I'll ask you, as we continue to craft the NDAA, what authorities and resources does Indo-PACOM need to address as respects the national security dimensions of digital assets?
Presently, we're in experimentation, so I'll give you a deeper look into that. Presently, we have a node on the Bitcoin network right now. We're not mining Bitcoin. We're using it to monitor, and we're doing a number of operational tests to secure and protect networks using the Bitcoin protocol.
I appreciate that, Admiral. Thank you. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back. Chair, I recognize the gentlelady from California, Ms. Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Admiral Papayel, General Brunson. Nice to see you both again. I first want to ask about civilian harm mitigation efforts. Over the past year, Secretary Hegseth has made significant cuts to personnel and institutional roles responsible for civilian harm mitigation and response, saying there will be, quote, no stupid rules of engagement, end quote. Mr. No, how many Indo-PACOM personnel are currently assigned full-time to civilian harm mitigation issues, and what are their specific roles and responsibilities within the command?
Congresswoman, I'll have to take that answer back.
Okay, I'll look forward to getting an answer from you. Admiral Paparo, from a commander's perspective, what operational and institutional risks does the loss of dedicated civilian harm expertise create for Indo-PACOM's overall preparedness? And specifically, how does that risk calculus change when you factor in the prospect of large-scale, high-tempo conflict in the Indo-Pacific region?
Congresswoman, I'll say that following the laws of armed conflict, which are ancient to a great extent and eternal, and also guarantees that our would-be adversaries also follow the laws of armed conflict, is a matter of first principles for everyone in uniform, including the civilians that work. I think the mitigation of civilian harm in conflict is a matter of first duty for everyone who works in the DoD, and we're always going to work really hard to ensure that our actions are right, just, proportional, all in accordance with the laws of armed conflict.
Yes, well, and I very much appreciate that, and I know that our folks in uniform take this very seriously. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, in the absence of a sort of standing institutionalized civilian harm capacity at the command, could you maybe walk me through, like, how would Indo-PACOM manage civilian harm mitigation assessment and response? Who would be responsible, and what gaps would immediately become apparent if conflict were to begin in the Indo-Pacific tomorrow?
I'll say commanders are always accountable. Commanders have the accountability, the responsibility, and the authority, and I am accountable to the country, to the committee, for all civilian harm mitigation, for executing our combat operations within the laws of armed conflict. We use all of our targeting capability with our collateral damage estimates. We do so within our